Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guest today is Paul Berger from the Faculty of Education at Lakehead University. Welcome back, Paul.
Thanks, Steve.
So we were talking about how to make the change, and some of it is political and some of it is hands-on. You were talking about some of the hands-on of changing from burning fossil fuels to biomass, which is wood chips, which produces jobs here locally.
And I think that's a great example of we have one technology, we replace it with another technology. We actually probably have more jobs than we had before because of the nature of the technology, but we don't lose jobs. So one of the ways is to do these really on-the-ground projects, start the shift that we need, and let people see it and see that it works and see that we're moving towards a brighter future. The other thing that I think is going on in town right now that's pretty hopeful is we have Citizens United for a Sustainable Planet that I'm part of. We've done a whole bunch of climate sort of actions from giving feedback to local processes, the Canadian Climate Change Plan, those sorts of things, to being out on the street with signs saying we need to move faster on this. There's another group in town, LEAP, full disclosure, I'm an organizer with them as well, LEAP Thunder Bay, that's moving towards having a vision for Thunder Bay as a sustainable, caring place to live and work in the future. And one of the goals that we have in the short term is to look at City Council becoming much more progressive in the 2018 elections. So there are ways to get involved. Some of those things aren't very natural for people, and if they just start with conversations with each other, if they start with picking up a climate change book like Paul Gilding's The Great Disruption,
Just
which
put it right up on there so people can see it on the screen.
yeah, Gilding knows the depth of this problem, but he also talks about a whole bunch of research that suggests that as we solve the problem, we're going to have a better world. We're going to have more connection with each other instead of just more stuff. We're going to have cleaner air to breathe. We'll be more active. So there's all sorts of co-benefits of tackling climate change. And he's a good person. If you just want to read one book, if that's all you can manage, read The Great Disruption, and you'll be changed by it, I think, because you'll see the problem in a different way.
So has it changed you? So you've been active, you've mentioned in the last 4 years anyways, on this issue. Do you feel like it's changed you?
It's changed me incredibly. I would say I was a complainer before. I complained, I was concerned. Since I've become active, I feel like I'm involved in something. So, sometimes it's discouraging. We asked City Council here to publicly oppose the proposed Energy East pipeline, which would see, a massive piece of fossil fuel infrastructure that would lock us into 30 or 40 more years of increased emissions when we need to go in the other direction. And not only did they not support our request, but they introduced a motion and endorsed the project immediately after they denied our request. That's really discouraging. We need a City Council that is on the right side of this fight, that's working for our generation, for future generations, and moving the city quickly. We've got lots of great stuff happening at the city through Earth Care, and yet sometimes the decision makers don't seem to quite get it. So I've been frustrated sometimes, but I've had lots of good conversations with people. There's lots of great people working on this together. And there's a feeling of trying to do something, which is better than sitting back and just being concerned or complaining about it, I think.
So you mentioned this 30 or 40 years around a pipeline. Like, I don't explain that to me. What are you saying there?
So if a company is willing to spend $17 billion to build a pipeline, or in our case, take an old pipeline and retrofit it, to do this kind of massive project, they're not expecting to send oil through it for only 5 or 10 years. The only way to pay back a project like that is over a 30 or 40 year time scale. And so building something like Energy East, which would ship 1 million barrels of diluted bitumen across our territory every day, we have to expect that it would do that for 30 or 40 years. The climate will be broken. We're not talking about we shouldn't be talking about climate change anymore. We should be talking about climate breakdown or climate disruption, because that's what we're seeing. George Monbiot from England says that calling it climate change is like calling a foreign invasion unexpected guests. It just completely underestimates the problem. But
Well, I mean, this year, in the last month, it seems like we've had 3 hurricanes that are all the biggest ever, one after another. Like, oh, this is the 100-year, the 500-year hurricane, one after another. And then you hear it's because the ocean is warming, which is the result of climate change, and that's not going to go away. So we can expect bigger and bigger storms. So we've got to get ready, right?
we have to get ready, and if extreme weather and a bit of health concerns with ticks and Lyme disease, if these were the only consequences of climate change, you could make an argument that maybe we shouldn't bother tackling it because it's we'll be mostly okay. Most of us don't get Lyme disease. Most of us won't be involved in a flood. Thunder Bay already has these impacts. We're only at 1 degree of change. The Paris Climate Agreement would try to limit it to 2 degrees of change, but the countries so far, what they've pledged to do would see us going to 3.5 degrees. And Canada's not on the target that they've set. We can expect a 4 or 5 degree change by the end of the century on the path we're on. This will mean far more than just extreme weather events. It will mean American climate refugees from the coastal areas coming to Canada, maybe with weapons because they need a place to live, and that's the way things happen. It will mean not getting food trucks from California and Mexico because the social systems will be breaking down before we get to 5 degrees. It's hard to talk about things like this because it tends to make people like, this is terrible, and then they shut down and they don't want to do anything. But these are the scientific predictions of what's coming. We know what comes if we stay on the path we're on, but we have every opportunity to change things. We have the science, we have the technology, we can do this, we know how to make big changes. As a species, we're incredibly smart and adaptable, and we've had huge challenges before that we've risen up to and made changes. So I'm just inviting everybody to become a part of this, and the Climate Change Forum was part of that, spreading knowledge and involving people and involving students, because there's no reason to go down the path that we know is a really dangerous one. We can make a change, and it'll be a better change, that the world will be amazing.
So we're just about out of time. How can people find out more if they want to?
An email to me at paul.berger@lakeheadu.ca, and I'll connect them where they want to be connected. We can get more information on the forum that just happened, or any of the participants in the forum, or I can connect them to groups in town that are doing work on this.
Paul, it was great having you as a guest. Thank you so much for coming on. I want to thank all the folks for tuning in and appreciate your comments on Facebook. Look at Community Conversations. Thanks, and stay safe.